All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Village Board meeting to order on Monday, November 18, 2019. We apologize for the delay in getting started here this evening, but would ask if you would all please rise and join the Village Board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Here.
Trustee Scaletta.
Here.
Trustee Baldino.
Here.
Trustee Canty.
Here.
Trustee Padovani.
Here.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
President Hayes.
Here. First item on the agenda is the approval of the Village Board meeting minutes from November 4, 2019. Are there any changes or passes?
Move approval.
There's a pass by Trustee Rosenberg, motion to approve by Trustee LaBedz.
Second.
Second by Trustee Padovani. Was there another pass? No. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And next, the approval of the accounts payable, and I call on Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I'd move approval of the warrant register with a check date of November 15, 2019 in the amount of $2,326,667.89.
Second. Motion to approve by Trustee Rosenberg, second by Trustee Scaletta. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta.
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Padovani.
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia.
Yes.
Trustee Canty.
Yes.
Trustee Baldino.
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Well, next we move on to recognitions and presentations. And while we have very many special citizens and residents in the village of Arlington Heights, we are pleased and honored to be joined by a true American hero with us this evening, who's actually lived in the village of Arlington Heights for 64 years now. James Osler has been one who's inspired me and many, many others to serve in the military, a member of the greatest generation. And we can't thank him and all members of the greatest generation enough for what they've done for us and for this country and for this community in defending and providing the freedoms that we enjoy. So in recognition of Mr. Osler receiving the French Legion of Honor here in the village of Arlington Heights this Thursday at noon, we will be presenting a proclamation to him in just a moment, but I wanted to just make sure everyone understands what a great honor the French Legion of Honor actually is. The Legion of Honor is the highest distinction that the Republic of France can bestow upon those who have achieved remarkable deeds for their country. Founded by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802, the National Order of the Legion of Honor recognizes eminent service to the French Republic. Recipients of this honor are named by decree signed only by the President of the French Republic. The Consul General of France to the Midwest, Guillaume Lacroix, will be present in the village on Thursday afternoon to present the Legion of Honor to Mr. Osler on behalf of the President of France and the people of France in the presence of other dignitaries. And so it's a very, very special honor that very few people have achieved. And so I am very honored to present this proclamation to Mr. Osler. And so I'm going to come down. And James, if you could come forward and join us here at the front. And I'd also ask the chairman of our Veterans Memorial Committee, Trustee Greg Padovani, to join us up front as well. Why, give you to turn him around? Yeah. Why don't you come back to see? Thanks. Well, James, thank you so much for coming. I know we've...
It's Jim, please.
Okay, Jim. We've spent some time together at Veterans Day celebrations over the past week, and so this is an official proclamation recognizing this a great achievement that you're going to be receiving this Thursday. So in recognition of receiving the French Legion of Honor, James P. Osler Sr., whereas Jim grew up in Melrose Park, Illinois. He married his late wife, Audrey, in 1948, and they moved to Arlington Heights, Illinois in 1955, where they raised their 7 children. Mr. Osler has been a resident of Arlington Heights for 64 years. Whereas on the occasion of receiving the French Legion of Honor, it is altogether fitting and proper that his hometown recognize Jim's distinguished military career and service. Whereas the Legion of Honor is the highest distinction that France can bestow upon those who have performed remarkable deeds for their country. Whereas during World War II, Mr. Osler was a navigator with the 388th Bomb Group and then squadron navigator for the 803rd and 36th Bomb Squadrons of the 8th U.S. Army Air Force in the European Theater of Operations. From September 1943 until February 5, 1945, Captain Osler participated in the Normandy, Northern France, Ardennes, Rhineland, and Air Offensive Europe campaigns, during which he flew 25 combat missions in B-17 bombers and became a member of the unofficial Lucky Bastards Club. After 25 missions, then Major Osler was attached to the Royal Air Force, or RAF, flying B-17s on special counterintelligence missions. Whereas Major James P. Osler Sr. was honorably discharged on October 31, 1945, and in 1960 was officially transferred to the Retired Reserve section of the United States Air Force. For his meritorious service, Major Osler was awarded the Air Medal with 4 bronze oak leaf clusters, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the EAME Theater Ribbon with 1 Silver Battle Star, 3 Overseas Service Bars, and the British Distinguished Flying Cross. Now, therefore, I, Thomas W. Hayes, Mayor, along with the Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the entire village of Arlington Heights, humbly thank Mr. Osler for his distinguished military service to our country and on the occasion of receiving the French Legion of Honor to the people of the French Republic. His dedication to duty, honor, and freedom have been an inspiration to us all. Jim, congratulations. Say a few words?
Sure.
I know you've got a lot of stories to tell, so we're anxious to hear one of them.
Most of them
Back in
should
the
not be
microphone if you would,
repeated.
Jim. Most can't be repeated, is what he said.
It's unusual, I think, that anyone reaches my age and gets a public good for you, and has members of his own family in attendance. And for that, I'm grateful to all of you who made this possible. And I hope I never have to do it again. I'm honored by being here.
Well, we're looking forward to Thursday. I know it's going to be a great moment for you and your family, and for all of us in this community and this country. So congratulations again to you.
Thank you.
All right. Jim, you're welcome to stay. We've got a lot of exciting agenda items, but you're free to leave the meeting as well. So no need for you guys to stay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we will move on in the agenda to citizens to be heard. And I do have one blue card on an individual who wants to speak to the board on an item not on the agenda, and that's William Boudreau. And Bill, I know you've done this before, and so you're just reminded of the 3-minute time limit.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Probably what I'm going to talk about isn't quite as important as what we just went through, but 3 minutes, I was here on the 4th. A lot of people spoke. Everyone was told they had 3 minutes, and I know that you, Mr. Mayor, didn't want to be rude, so quite a few people went over their 3 minutes. I spoke twice. I stay within my 3 minutes. I'd say probably, realistically, that added about 30 to 45 minutes to a meeting that was what? I think we got out of here about 11:30. If you have a deadline, you got to keep to the deadline. I know you don't want to be rude to anybody, but if it's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. It reminds me of Joe Biden when he was in the debate, and all of a sudden he just stopped. Oh, my time's up. I mean, it's maybe rude, but at least it's going to keep things moving. And when you got the issue that you guys had on the board on the 4th, you had a lot of people speaking, a lot of people went over.
I hear what you're saying, and I do have a clock here, and so I was very careful.
Well, and no, I know. I can see I've got 2 minutes left, and I got one other thing that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And within the 3 minutes, and that's the whole thing about recreational marijuana. Somebody told me after the meeting that the new law basically eliminates medical marijuana, and I remembered I had seen something, I don't know, some lawyer's write-up, and I think he had said the same thing. So as of 1/1/2020, there is no such thing, I guess, in Illinois as medical marijuana. You folks voted 5-3 to say there would be no sale of recreational marijuana. So if as of 1/1/2020, there's no such thing as medical marijuana in the state of Illinois, and we've now decided that you can't sell it as of 1/1/2020, does that mean the dispensary that sells medical marijuana, is that going to be shut down on 1/1/2020?
No, that's not the case. What we decided had nothing to do with medical marijuana
Oh,
or with the current dispensary. So
I understand that, but I only got 58
to sell.
seconds, so.
I'm going to give you more time than 3 minutes.
I
and so-
looked through this, the law itself, trying to figure out, well, is this actually true? And they don't even use the term marijuana, they use the term cannabis. But I was trying to look, it's 610 pages, and after about 200 or 300, I was getting a little blurry with my eyesight. But I couldn't find anything, but there's got to be some sort of a relationship between the two, and I'm sure there's better legal minds than mine that would do it. But just from the standpoint of if, in fact, that is true, how can you then have a dispensary selling medical marijuana, which it doesn't, is licensed for medical marijuana sales,
Well,
and there's
I
no
don't think
such
it's
thing?
true. And so, Ms. Ward, you want to address that?
Yeah, it's not true. Medical marijuana is still a thing in Illinois, and the 611-page law has some tweaks to the medical marijuana regulations, but it's still in place.
Okay, I was just curious because you have a business that could possibly be out of business as of
No,
1/1/2020.
I made it clear at the beginning of a number of hearings that what we did, or potentially did, had absolutely nothing to do with the current medical dispensary. Won't affect them one way or the other.
I understand that, but I was curious as to whether or not the law did in fact eliminate it, and so we'll see.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on an item not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on then to old business. And we do have a number of items to report out. The first is from the committee of the whole meeting from November 12, 2019. And I call on Trustee Canty.
I move now, as I did then, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to the Board of Trustees that the Board acknowledge with thanks the proposed budget for the Arlington Heights Memorial Library Fund.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Canty, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any questions or comments from the board? I think from the audience. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, report from the committee of the whole meeting from November 14, 2019. And I'd first call on Trustee Padovani.
Thank you, Mayor. I move now, as I did then, that the committee of the whole recommend to the Village Board of Trustees that the board approve a 3-year budget agreement with Meet Chicago Northwest Bureau with each year being funded at 8% of the hotel tax receipts.
Second.
Motion by trustee Padovani, second by trustee Canty. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Do we need a roll call on this, Robin, or voice?
No, you can do voice vote because it'll all be part of the budget.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed. And finally, from the same meeting, I would call on trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. Well, we had a wonderful presentation here from a really great group of staff members, and I'm pleased to move tonight, as I did on November 14th, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to the Village Board of Trustees to authorize staff to prepare the villages and the Arlington Heights Memorial Library 2019 tax levy ordinance reflecting an estimated total tax levy of $51,315,596, or a 0% increase over the 2018 extended tax levy for the village and library portion of the levy.
Second.
Motion by trustee Tinaglia, seconded by trustee, who was it? Schwingbeck. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Well, I would just echo trustee Tinaglia's comments. A great result as a result of a lot of hard work by the staff. And so thanks to our village manager and our finance department and all department heads for holding the line on their budgets and in turn allowing us to hold the line on the taxes this year. And so we're very pleased that we're able to hold the line at 0% this year. So thanks to all involved in that effort. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we did have one other motion to come out of that November 14th meeting, and I call on trustee LaBedz.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. I move now, as I did then, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to the Village Board of Trustees that the board approve the proposed 2020 budget as amended through the review process.
Second.
Motion by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Rosenberg. Any questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Any roll call on this one?
No, because again, that'll be budget ordinance.
Mr. Boudreau.
I looked through the budget, or the proposed budget. I couldn't quite make it out, but is it 78 million total, or is it 171 million total? What's the?
Mr. Ricklasser, Mr. Keeney.
171.
178 million, okay. I was just wondering. The other question I have is, you got about, when I was looking through this, I had talked about the water bills the last time. You don't have my 3 minutes up, Mayor. You had proposed a 28% increase in the water bill, and you had the bond issue at the same time. I also thought, if I read it correctly, there's a $30 million surplus right now in the village has. Is that correct, my understanding?
That's correct.
Okay. My question is, when I looked at it, I saw that there were, according to the proposal, about, I think it was $18 million in fixed costs, which, based on what I understand, 30% of the folks could possibly retire next year and 41% of the folks could retire next year. That's broken down about, I think, 9 million, 10 million for police and firefighters, approximately another 2 million for other employees in the city, and then $6.7 million for debt service. And I guess my question is of that 18 million, about 6.9 million is about the only thing we have control over, because I see that the retirement over the next 2 years may be a much larger bill to pay. So the question I have is, as I went back to the water rates, is why aren't we increasing the rates as opposed to having the bond issue, when in fact you got $6.7 million per year, it sounds like, maybe more going forward. And that's one of the few things that you can control, so why aren't we paying as we go as opposed to borrowing and then paying for it? It seems like that's a big amount of money that's that we, 6.9 million or 6.8 million or whatever. It's about the only thing that you're going to be able to control, because you're probably not going to be able to control that much when it comes to retirement benefits, which are only going to grow into the future. So I'm wondering why we're not paying as we go, and managing that way as opposed to continuing to borrow money when you got bonds that you've retired. Why borrow again? Pay if you got $30 million in a contingency fund or surplus, or whatever you want to call it.
Mr. Keeney, do you have any response?
It was kind of difficult to respond when I'm not quite sure about all the gyrations with the numbers that were thrown out there. But if you'd like to call me, separately, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. But I can say one thing when you're talking about property taxes, that has to do with general fund, pension funds, and the like. But with the water and sewer fund, that's only funded through water and sewer revenues. And in this case, we're having a bond issue in order to increase the water main project $2 million per year, and doing it on a sustainable basis. So
Well, if you got $30 million in reserves right now, $2 million a year over the next 5 years.
that $30 million we cannot touch for water and sewer revenues, because that's with operating funds, which is a total separate pool of money. In government, you have separate funds. So it's different than running a business, say.
If I could take
Sure,
a crack at
Mr.
this as
Eklund.
well, one of the reasons why we get as good a rates when we borrow money as we do is because we maintain pretty healthy reserves in our different funds. And one of the reasons we maintain those reserves is so if we do have something happen catastrophic, or we do have something that where the state decides, as have done in the past, that they're just no longer going to share a certain revenue source with us or forever, we still have to, we don't have the option of closing up our doors. We still have to keep police officers on the street, keep firefighters on the street, maintain the roads, et cetera. And so those funds are there to protect the community in the event of that situation. And one of the things we mentioned in the presentation, if you're there, you saw it, the amount we keep is actually, not anywhere near the highest among our peer communities. And we're comfortable with the level that we have, but it is within generally accepted accounting principles for a community our size to have that level of reserve. Because we don't want to get in a situation where we're drawing that down too much, because if we get into another recession or another situation, that money could be gone.
Well, still, you got about $20 million in fixed costs without one penny going towards providing services to the village of Arlington Heights. So I'm just saying, six pence, that's 6.9 million is a third of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have one other item to report out under old business. That's the motion from our committee, the whole meeting from earlier this evening. And I call on Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move now, as I did earlier this evening, to recommend to the Liquor Commissioner the denial of a Class A liquor license to J&D MOA, Inc., doing business as MOA, located at 4216 North Arlington Heights Road.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee LaBedz to deny. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We then have no other old business, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any members of the board who wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Any members of the audience wish to remove an item on the consent agenda? Any members of the board wish to vote no or pass on any item on the consent agenda?
Melissa.
Wait, Melissa, did you want to remove something? If you have to come forward, please. And give us your name.
Melissa Kerr, A, bond waiver, Arlington Heights Park District.
All right, that shall be removed. Anyone else wish to remove an item? Seeing none. Any members wish to vote no or pass on any remaining items on the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve the remaining items by Trustee Scaletta, seconded by Trustee LaBedz. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Scaletta,
Yes.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Baldino,
Yes.
Trustee Canty,
Yes.
Trustee Padovani,
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
President Hayes.
Yes. Can we take up the bond waiver now?
And if you want, normally it would be under petitions and communications, but you can take it now if you want to.
Yeah, let's have a motion to take it out of order then, if I could.
I would
So
move to
moved.
move it up.
By Trustee Scaletta, second by
Second.
Trustee Padovani. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, let's take up the bond waiver. And Melissa, why don't you tell us what your question is?
What is it?
Mr. Ecklaus?
So when an organization has a raffle in town, we require that they provide a bond, and that's just really to make sure that the organization isn't going to run off with everybody's money. And given our what we've done is, given that the park district is the park district, we don't typically ask them for a bond. We know they're not going anywhere. We know that if there were some problem with it, they would be able to be held accountable for that issue.
They're going to have a raffle, and you would require them to give you a deposit. So if somebody won the raffle, you could pay them with the deposit.
How would you characterize
No,
that, Rob?
it's putting up a bond. What the code requires is that a bond get put up. It doesn't have to be cash. So that if somebody wins the raffle and the organization running the raffle doesn't have the money or they ran away, then the bond would pay out the raffle winnings.
And how do you get a bond?
You have to go to a bonding company.
Is it similar to if you get arrested and you have to bond out?
No. I mean, it's a totally different kind of bond.
Where would you get a bond?
I don't know.
All right, thank you. Any further questions on this, Trustee Scaletta?
I just wanted to make clear, so this comes before us quite often from organizations in town that have been around for a long time, that many of us know and work with, churches, scout groups, Legion Hall, and so anytime anybody is taking money for a raffle, we do have a requirement for a bond, and the villages often waive those bonds as long as the organization is well known to the board and the community and the staff. And so this is nothing out of the ordinary. And at this time, I would move approval of the bond waiver for the Arlington Heights Park District.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Scaletta, second by Trustee Canty. Any further questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move on then to new business, and we do have one agenda item tonight. That's the LaSalle Estates subdivision located at 2000 North Chestnut Avenue. So a request for preliminary and final plat of subdivision, including variations. Is the petitioner present? Come forward and just give us your name.
My name is Sean Kelly.
All right, Mr. Kelly, if you'd tell us what you're looking to do here.
So there's currently one single-family home that's on the subject property, and the proposed project is subdividing that parcel into 3 single-family home sites.
Okay, Mr. Perkins, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I can quickly go through the request a little bit more detail. This is an area that was annexed into the village in the early 1970s, just north of Palatine Road. The area highlighted in red is the subject property. They would be dedicating half of the southern portion to widen Ladd Street, and then half of the western side of Chestnut to expand Chestnut. So the proposal, you can see the kind of hatched lines along the top here. That's the dedication for Ladd Street. And over here is the dedication of right-of-way for Chestnut. There is one variation on this lot on the east side, lot 3, for the setback variation. The way code is written is that it's the average setback of the lots and the homes between 2 intersecting streets. So going from Ladd Street to Palatine Road, there's a couple of homes on lots that could redevelop in the future that have very large setbacks. So they would trigger the requirement for a 40-foot setback. In this case, staff concurred with the petitioner's request to have a 30-foot setback, which is more consistent with the homes on the east side of Chestnut and also the homes north of Ladd. There were some discussions at the Plan Commission about the size of the lots. This is the neighborhood, most of it's R2. The kind of average lots range from 12 to 15,000 square feet in this area. This particular site would have 3 12,000 square foot lots. To the west, you'll see lots are smaller in 12 to 10,000 square feet. North of LaSalle, they're a little bit bigger in the 13,000 square foot range. And then on the east side, again, you've got a couple of lots that are smaller than what's proposed. And then south, you have a few larger lots, and then a couple of very large lots, about an acre in size. This particular one to the south could be subdivided at a future date with frontage off both Walnut and Chestnut. They are providing stormwater drainage through private utilities that would then connect to the village's conveyance system on Ladd and into the detention basin that the village owns further north. So both staff and Plan Commission recommended approval of the proposed subdivision.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Questions from the board? Trustee Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Charles, as far as the water detention, we're taking a fee in lieu of. So based upon engineering reports, they're in agreement, because I know a number of the residents expressed an issue with the potential of flooding in that area and where water was going to go, and the Ladd detention may not be sufficient to hold the water drainage. Have we determined that all that's sufficient for this?
Yes, I spoke with the village engineer, Mike Pagonis, about this situation. He spoke with at least one of the residents that spoke at the Plan Commission hearing. Their issue was the 2011 flood, which was a very unusual occurrence. The engineering advised that the Ladd detention basin is designed for a 100-year storm. The conveyance system, the pipes, the storm sewers are typically a 10-year storm. And in 2011, there were a number of contributing factors. He spoke to that homeowner. It could have been their sump pump that wasn't running because they were out of power, things like that. This particular area fared better than many in the community, and there haven't been a pattern of historical flooding based on information that the engineering division has. So they're comfortable with the payment fee in lieu of, because it's a small subdivision that doesn't warrant on-site detention. Typically a larger subdivision, you'd have a detention basin.
And I know there were some other comments made about, construction was potentially going on or redevelopment of the property, as far as the street being blocked and things like that. All that'll be worked out upon issue of permits and things?
Yes, there are two homes on the north side of Ladd that both have driveways, and then Ladd Street is the access point to actually get to Walnut. Let's see if I can get the large aerial back. So that section of Ladd Street will have to be maintained. There we go. So this half a street of Ladd Street is needed for access to these two lots and all of these homes here. So that access will have to be maintained while they expand the street.
And Mr. Kelly, I think you indicated, or was indicated in the minutes, that you've reoriented one of the lots, I think, to have a different access from the garage or something?
Excuse me. Yeah, that's correct. So I just took some of the feedback from some neighbors that appeared for the previous meetings. They'd raised some concern about having three driveways all access off of LaSalle Street. So there's some level of architectural work that's been done to date that's included in the information that staff has, and we just reorientated Lot 3's driveway to be a side load to help relieve that.
And will you be the builder of these homes, or are you just selling the lots off?
I'm just managing the entitlement process.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Trustee Tinaglia.
Thanks, Mayor Hayes. So, Charles, are there any other zoning issues outside of this average setback on the east side?
No, the only other thing we did was require the petitioner provide a wider setback on lot 1, because technically it actually doesn't front on Walnut, because there's a little 5-foot strip that somebody else owns, even though it will function like an exterior side yard. So they're providing that extra setback, so in reality nobody would know the difference.
So it's behaving like an exterior side lot.
Correct.
There. How wide is that piece that runs along there?
It's a little 5-foot spite strip. You can just see it on this exhibit, if I can get the mouse to work. So 5 feet here, it runs along here, and then down along the next lot to the south, and then the village owns the 66 feet of right-of-way to the west of that.
Why do you think that exists like that?
It's probably could be a number of reasons. You often see this in a commercial situation where somebody will hold on to a little strip to maybe preclude a competitor having access to a street. I think in this case there were some lots that were long and linear going north-south from Palatine Road, and it was just how it was subdivided. Based on looking at a quick look at the tax records, the name on this strip matches the name on the lot to the south, so hopefully that won't preclude, if it is the same person, won't preclude the development of that lot to the south at some future
That'll
date.
get split east and west probably someday.
Yeah, the lot is wide enough that it could be split into two 75-foot wide lots, and they would be about 11,000 square feet each. The minimum requirement in this district is 10,000.
Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Kelly, can you go back to the list of contingents? Have you read through all 7 of these, and do you agree to all of them?
I do, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the petition as put forth tonight and recommended by the Plan Commission.
All right, that's
Second.
a motion. Okay, and a second by Trustee Scaletta. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, good luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
No other new business, so we'll move on to legal. We do have a very important ordinance to approve tonight. That's for an agreement between the Village of Arlington Heights and the Arlington Heights Firefighters Association, Local 3105. Mr. Recklaus.
Yes, we have, staff has negotiated a 3-year agreement with our IFF local. The negotiations occurred in good faith. Very little changes from our status quo, just some increases to wages and also some other minor changes relating to insurance and a couple of other items, and we would recommend approval.
Okay. Any comments from either 3105 or Chief?
No, I heard it was very good.
Well, come forward if you would, Chief.
No, everything that I heard was very positive between the union and staff, and I certainly thank them for all of their efforts, and we're happy to support this agreement.
And I would commend Robin Ward and Diana McCula, who serve on the bargaining team along with our Mary Rath and Fire Department representative.
That's one thing that we're very fortunate that we have staff to handle that, and the board doesn't get involved in those things. And so we appreciate your hard work and the efforts of Local 3105 as well. And so looking forward to another 3 years of a great relationship. And thank you again for all the great work that the men and women of our fire department do for the Village of Arlington Heights on a daily basis. So thank you for keeping us safe. All right, we do have an ordinance to approve, and so I'd entertain a motion. Do we
So-
already have a motion? Trustee LaBedz?
I would move approval of the agreement between the Village of Arlington Heights and the Arlington Heights Firefighters Association, Local 3105 IAFF.
Second.
Motion by Trustee LaBedz, second by Trustee Canty. Any further questions or comments from the board? Anything from the audience? If not, roll call.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Padovani?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. Thanks again. No other legal items, and so we move on to the report of the village manager. Mr. Reckloss, anything other than the request for closed session?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Under petitions and communications, it's hard to believe, but next week is Thanksgiving. This is our last village board meeting before the Thanksgiving holiday, and so just want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving holiday with their family and friends, and we have a lot to be thankful for in the village of Arlington Heights, so just encourage all of us to take the time to give thanks for all the blessings in our lives. And the day after Thanksgiving is the annual holiday tree lighting at North School Park, put on by our Special Events Commission with the assistance from the Park District. And so we very much appreciate their hard work in the planning and execution of that very much anticipated event in the village of Arlington Heights. And so I think the festivities start about 4:15 or so on Friday afternoon after Thanksgiving, with the tree lighting at about 5 o'clock. So hope to see everyone at North School Park the day after Thanksgiving, and we're all hoping for good weather. So, Trustee Padovani.
Just one thing to add about Thanksgiving. For the 23rd year in a row, the American Legion Post 208 here in Arlington Heights will be hosting sailors from the Recruit Training Command at Great Lakes Naval Training Center. These are young men and women who are in basic training in the United States Navy, and they're not allowed to go home over the holidays. So like so many organizations around the area, our Legion here, or really our entire village, is hosting this year about 35 of these young people to come down for an entire day of Thanksgiving. I'm going to pick them up very early and bring them down, and they're going to have a full day of meals and drinks, and we also provide them with phones to call home all day for free, which, by the way, is the first time they've been out in the real world 6 to 8 weeks. They've been sequestered in the basic training. And anybody who's around Thanksgiving Day, say about 9 or 9:30 when we roll up with these young sailors, if you'd like to come to the American Legion and welcome them and thank them for their service to the country, it's all very much appreciated, because it's a community effort that is the village of Arlington Heights is doing this. And that's Thanksgiving morning, about 9 to 9:30 is when I hope we'll be able to roll up with them, depending on the Navy.
Thanks, Trustee Padovani. Anything further from the board? Seeing none, back to Mr. Reckloss.
Thank you, Mayor. I would request that we enter into closed session per ILCS 120/2C21, discussion of minutes lawfully closed, whether for the purpose of approval of the minutes or the semi-annual review of the minutes, and 5 ILCS 120/2C1, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel.
Do we have such a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion to go into closed session by Trustee LaBedz, seconded by Trustee Rosenberg. Roll call.
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes.
Trustee Padovani?
Yes.
Trustee Tinaglia?
Yes.
Trustee Baldino?
Yes.
Trustee Scaletta?
Yes.
Trustee Canty?
Yes.
President Hayes?
Yes. So we are adjourned into closed session and will not be reporting back out. Thank you for joining us this evening.